Okay. Well, I see Roger just ran out of the room, so I don't know what that means. Okay, we'll get started on this anyway. My name's Chris Caius. I'm chairman of the King County Administration Committee. I'm calling this meeting to order on Wednesday, January 10th, 2024 at about 10:40 a.m.
Berman, Davist,
Davist here.
Ford, Gums, Young,
Young here.
Juby,
Ruby here.
Caius,
Vice President.
Tepe.
Tuppy.
You have an in-person quorum?
Great. We have a quorum. Then I would ask for unanimous consent to allow Mr. Davis to participate. You have a participation, Mr. Davis, for that reason?
Health. Try not to
Health,
get
okay.
anybody sick.
All right.
The third one.
So without objection,
Not a crazy one.
he's a participant in this committee.
So you would not blind.
Thank you.
And then I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes from December 13th, 2023. Moved by Berman, second by
Comes.
Gums. Are any changes, modifications? In favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. The minutes are approved. Then I believe the finance report is attached. So if you have any questions, go to our finance department. It's listed in the agenda at any rate. And is there any public comment? Anyone in person, online, or in writing? Haven't heard anybody. And then we'll move on to the facilities master plan update. And I'll turn that over to our Executive Director, Roger Fonstock.
Good morning. This is Roger Fonstock with IT and Building Management. This morning, we have Heidi Files is with us, who's the project manager working with us on the facilities master plan. We also have Jason Dwyer from White and Company, and they're here to give us the plan update. So with that, Heidi, I don't know if you have a few things to say, but we have Jason at the podium and ready to talk about our next steps in the facility master plan.
Sure, I'll just say a couple of words that, we took a lot of the feedback from the county board members and our various meetings with the judicial leadership to come up with an executive summary that we're presenting today that addresses short-term, medium-term, and long-term needs for the county. One of the recommendations is a technical recommendation with alternatives that address some of the concerns with, do we have the financial whereabouts at this time to build something new? No, we don't. The technical recommendation is more about efficiency in services, delivery, and consolidation at the judicial campus. But in the plan, we're going to also leave a full recommendation that these other two alternatives, which is staying here and renovating, and also the Fabian campus, are viable alternatives, and that you guys, the county board, can navigate the financial and political leadership and availabilities at that time when we need to pull the trigger as space needs arise. So that's all I'd like to say. And then Jason can go in the details about the plan. Thanks.
Okay, Jason Dwyer from White and Company.
Where? Sign? Yeah.
I'm not getting you. There a green light?
Looks like it's on. Maybe you just gotta stand closer. Is that better?
Got to be pretty close.
Okay.
Yeah, you're too tall.
Yeah, I know. Sorry about that. Raise the podium a little. Jason Dwyer with White and Company. Good morning, everyone. Good to be back with you. I know we've had a little break from me for a couple months. So just wanted to, I think Heidi gave a really nice intro. So let me start where we left off. We had provided previously at our last meeting a technical recommendation, which identified a solution to consolidate all core operations at the judicial center site. Already have a large base of operations there for the judiciary. And this showed consolidation of county government functions there as well, including a centralized health department. Slight variation in this plan from what you saw before. We've shown an alternative to place the health department just on the south side of Route 38. And even with this, you've got available land area for future development of other operations and things that are not contemplated right now, which is a good place to be in. I think when we do master planning, long-range planning, we look as far out as we can, but we always want to preserve land area for things that come up that are unanticipated. So with this in mind, though, I know there were some questions and concerns about just how to move forward and what was the right approach. So as Heidi said, we are looking at a number of different options. And the other thing is focusing a little bit on some of the short-term needs and different scenarios on how to do that. So I think as we saw it, a couple of the challenges, certainly there's some challenges related to funding for the larger projects. When you talk about a large redevelopment or even major renovation for county government or big judicial expansion projects, those are large dollar projects that usually take a long time to plan from a financial perspective. And that may not be in the cards right now. So one of the things we looked at is what are really the short-term challenges that need to be addressed, and looked at a couple different scenarios on how to address those. So a couple that were sort of priority items, the health department. I think we've talked a lot about some of the challenges with the existing health department building in Aurora. So we're looking at a solution for a new centralized health department. I'd say one of the other major challenges, our state's attorney office space, and really not just state's attorney, but judiciary support staff as a whole. So that would be the other agencies, public defender, court services, even looking at other judicial offices, court reporters, and so forth. So when we did the space needs assessment, those were higher priority needs from a space standpoint. And then more recently, actually through the process of developing the master plan, we had discussions about adding a courtroom at the Juvenile Justice Center. We've had some recent meetings with the judiciary, and unfortunately, the need for expanded abuse and neglect court has become a higher priority. So we've identified that as a larger priority need, and I'll kind of walk through some of the scenarios on that. And then certainly we've talked a lot about storage as well, just in general, how to deal with the centralized storage and what that might afford the county in terms of future planning. So you all have this handout here. I'm going to go through each of the different options separately, so it's a little more legible. But basically what we've looked at is trying to break down some solution options, scenarios for you in terms of short, mid, and long-term planning. So short-term being the 1 to 3 year time frame, and the time frames are a little bit flexible. We just identified some targets here. Midterm being 3 to 10 years, and then long-term on kind of the 10+ years. So, and then on the right is kind of the consolidated long-range master site plan. But let's just step through each of the options here in a little bit more detail. So first, on the short term, this kind of parallels what I just talked about on some of the more pressing needs. So we've talked for a while about a consolidated new central health department, approximately 44,000 square feet. Again, I think there's a little bit of detail and planning that could go into that, just in terms of thinking about how much additional space to plan for the future. We have identified central location at the Judicial Center campus for that facility. Next would be a storage facility. And this one, we're looking at between 50 and 70,000 square feet total. On a short-term basis, we just identified site location to be determined. I'll come back to this again later in terms of a long-range plan, but I think there's a number of different opportunities here for the county. This could be a rental scenario. It could be a possible building acquisition if that was appropriate. Something that's really focused is sort of warehouse storage space. I mean, right now storage is distributed in various locations throughout the county, including the jail, the unfinished housing area, which is just difficult. It's not centralized, difficult to get access to. So then the next project, Juvenile Justice Center expansion. So this actually can incorporate a couple different scenarios for the county. We're identifying between 20 and 25,000 square feet. This will need a little bit more planning as well to firm up the square footage. But what we're looking at is the potential for 2 new courtrooms there. As we project into the future out to 2050, based on metrics and population, we're showing a targeted need for somewhere in the order of 7 total courtrooms. So if we're able to accomplish 2 of those courtrooms here at the Juvenile Justice Center, it sort of lessens the burden that would be in play for the Judicial Center expansion down the road. And this would be abuse and neglect court. Right now, it's predominantly focused on abuse and neglect and delinquency on the juvenile side. So the second courtroom would provide additional flexibility for additional abuse and neglect or other operations as well. I think with this, there's an opportunity to provide additional space for judicial staff as well. So can take a little bit of the burden off of staff by providing this expansion. Currently, CASA resides in the old 3rd Street Courthouse. So their function really ties closely to the juvenile operations. So we felt like if we could get CASA consolidated there, that actually will free up some other opportunities to address needs as well. So we've also talked about a neutral exchange, which is a slightly new program for the county. That would be a great location to house it, and even considered Child Advocacy Center. So Child Advocacy currently has property adjacent to the 3rd Street Courthouse, but this might provide an opportunity to consolidate a lot of similar operations into one location. So next I'll go to state's attorney. So this being kind of one of the more pressing needs with hiring that is targeted and has happened already for the state's attorney. And this focuses on the criminal division. So predominantly state's attorneys that are located at the Judicial Center. This is a need, pressing need. I think anybody who's been to the state's attorney space would recognize how tight the staff are packed in there and how difficult it is. There's really no more expansion room in that building. So we've identified a couple scenarios here. One would be to lease space for state's attorney. So that's one option. Another would be to renovate space at the Kane Branch Court for state's attorney, or potentially option 3, move one of the other office holders out of the Judicial Center to renovated space at the Kane Branch Court so that the state's attorney could have all their staff consolidated in one spot. So, you know, I think that we identified court services as a possible group that could move out. Some of that's consideration based on groups that are predominantly in the courtroom. So state's attorney, public defender tend to be in the courtroom more. So staying connected to the courts at the Judicial Center felt more important. Even if we were to move court services out, having, I would say, like a satellite or check-in office is important for those that are sentenced to probation to be able to check in with court services before leaving for the day. So there's a number of different options here. And just kind of to highlight where somebody could go at Kane Branch Court. There's 2 different scenarios here. One would be on the far north side of the building that's currently being used for some storage and county clerk storage for elections equipment. If you were able to consolidate that storage into a new storage facility, it would free up space that could be renovated for office. Or the circuit clerk, I think that the amount of file storage has just greatly reduced over the timeline. And there may be opportunities to renovate some space and create a separate suite for either the state's attorney or another office holder that could move into that space. So I think you have a number of different scenarios here that could be accomplished at a lesser dollar value to address some of these short-term needs. Then I'll switch over to 3rd Street Courthouse. I think by virtue of if the Juvenile Justice Center expansion is executed and CASA is moved into a new space there, that would free up space at the 3rd Street Courthouse, which would allow for some additional expansion of the state's attorney civil division or other judicial offices at 3rd Street. So I think you can see how some of these options are tied together a little bit and can solve multiple needs in a couple smaller projects. And then I guess last but not least here, I highlighted the government center, and I think that just with recognition that a significant renovation or a new government center is likely to be many years into the future, there's still needs here on this campus. And if staff increases over time or there's additional space needs, one option would be to lease potentially some space for some of the functions here. And I guess the way we would consider it is maybe, I guess I'll call it back office or non-public facing functions. IT, for example, perhaps might be a group that doesn't get quite as much direct interaction with the public and could possibly be moved to a leased location to free up some additional space on the campus here. So again, just trying to think about bigger long-term projects not happening right away. What are some of the avenues the county has to execute in the short term to address needs? So that's really kind of the highlight of the 1 to 3 years sort of short-term plan. So let me switch over to midterm. This is a little bit a larger project profile here, something that would require a little bit more planning. I think in the long run, there's still going to need to be an expansion at the Judicial Center. All indications from operations and efficiency points to consolidating as many of the core judicial functions into the Judicial Center as possible. So we're putting a range on this of between 160 and 200,000 total square feet for the project. And to take advantage of shared security and all that, we're looking at this as an addition. I think you saw this as part of our technical recommendation, a longer term horizon for expansion of the facility. What this would allow for is I listed between 6 and 10 courtrooms. Reason for that is it's a little bit dependent on how many courtrooms you execute at the JJC. And then there's a need for additional courtrooms down the road, not pressing right now other than the abuse and neglect court that I spoke about a minute ago. Also, there was discussion about moving some of the more intense juried courtrooms from the 3rd Street Courthouse over to the Judicial Center, more of a modern courtroom, able to incorporate technology in that. That's not a must-have. I think that's a nice to have to be able to do that. So that's why we're showing a range of 6 to 10, because there's about 4 courtrooms. They could stay at 3rd Street, or they could be moved over probably with a little bit better efficiency to the Judicial Center. And then really this allows for consolidation of the circuit clerk, the Kane Branch Court, the Diagnostic Center. A lot of the functions that are currently at the Kane Branch Court could all be consolidated into the Judicial Center. There's also a couple different ways to execute this project. You could build a little bit larger footprint. You could leave some floors unfinished until such time as you needed courtrooms. Not all the needs happen at once. They kind of happen over time. So there's, I say, flexibility within this project, but this is one of your more significant longer term projects that would be in the master plan. Okay, then KeenCom and OEM currently on this campus. We've talked a lot about some benefits of having KeenCom and OEM located in the Judicial Center campus near the multi-use facility. Reason for that is some of the supportive operations for OEM, they can take advantage of garage space and so forth. It also provides for a little bit more separated and secure location for this group. Generally, KeenCom doesn't want to be very close to a lot of public interaction. It's more of a secured back of house type of operation, allows for a little bit more resiliency and safety, I guess, for a building of that importance. One of the benefits of executing this project would be that it frees up some space on this campus as well. So, if you're thinking about how to continue to expand and do work on the campus here as it exists, by moving KeenCom and OEM out, it would free up somewhere in the order of 7,000 square feet for a little bit more flexibility here. Okay, then I'll switch over to satellites. Right now, you already have operations in Aurora and Elgin. Aurora right now has the main health department. We talked about consolidating that to central part of the county, but there's also a significant footprint for court services, both in Aurora and Elgin. And that's important for that operation to provide the probation support, kind of closer to where people live, just based on the geographic distance of the county as a whole. So what we've talked about is consolidating into centralized facilities. I'll call them multifunction satellites, both at Aurora and Elgin. And that could incorporate court services, which you already have in those locations, a health department satellite. So again, while central health department primary services would be center part of the county here in the Tri-Cities area, Having footprint area for satellite operations in the northern and southern part of the county, we felt was important, and in discussions with the health department, they also felt was important. And you already have operations throughout the county that way. We've also looked at the ability to consolidate kind of shared government public services. So if you think about things like the clerk or assessments or a treasurer, public facing government operations that people would interact with, you could have a modest footprint at each of the different locations for the public to take care of county government business without having to drive to the Tri-Cities area if you live in the northern and southern part of the county. The only other thing we listed on here was neutral exchange. I think it's still a bit of a question. It's an important program, but debatable, I guess, how high a priority that is to have multiple neutral exchange sites. We did propose one at the JJC expansion, but there's flexibility to incorporate that type of a program at the northern and southern part of the county as well, if the county chose to do that. So with both of these, there's opportunities. I'll start with Aurora. I think that, you could look at doing a new facility. We suggested maybe 1330 North Highland, which is the location of the current court services. You have a community gardens plot adjacent to that. You could build a new facility there that incorporates those. It's probably got a little bit more site visibility. It's also possible to renovate the 1240 building once the health department moves out. So I think a couple different scenarios here. And in Elgin, this one, a site needs to be determined. Predominantly you're leasing space up there now. So you don't have a piece of land that you own in the area. So this would be looking for a site, or perhaps even looking at an opportunity to lease space to consolidate operations. One thing I failed to mention on Elgin, right now the Elgin branch court is in the Elgin City Hall. And I think we've identified or through discussions with the judiciary have learned that there's some challenges with that and trying to dual purpose that and scheduling and so forth. So we've shown an opportunity to create an actual branch court within your own facility. That's why the square footage for the Elgin satellite is a little larger than Aurora. Okay, so I'll go to long-term now. So we've already kind of presented our technical recommendation of consolidating all your core facilities at the Judicial Center campus. That includes about 120,000 square feet of space for the Government Center, which we've identified on the north side of Route 38, just to provide a little bit of separation for government on the north side and judiciary on the south side. But as we talked before, you have options for that as well. There's a potential to renovate and expand operations here on the Geneva current Government Center campus. You also retain Fabian Parkway as an available site asset for the county. A lot of the older buildings that were unused and falling apart have been demolished at this point. So it's a relatively clean slate that the county could use for a government center or other purposes. So it's nice, again, like I said, to have flexibility of options in terms of available land area for things that could come up, or even if it's a partnership with some other agency down the road that isn't currently being considered. And then finally, Randall Road building. Here, there's a potential, as we talked about, if you do the major expansion to the Judicial Center, most of the functions in that building will be pulled out of the building. You could sell the asset at that point. That's an option. Another option is if you were to be leasing storage space, let's say on a short-term basis, once the Randall Road building is vacated from its primary current uses, that could be converted to storage space as a possibility. Another option we saw that I think would help to address needs is the current branch court, once that operation is moved to the Judicial Center, it could be repurposed and converted into conferencing space. It's those of you that have been over there, it's a pretty nice, larger venue space to have bigger meetings. It's divisible with minor modifications. Some of the other spaces there could provide breakout rooms and other meeting and conferencing space. So without having to find a new asset or something, you could create some really nice meeting and conferencing space. And then just general flex office space. I mean, from time to time, we see that programs pop up or special considerations come to play, or like we just experienced with the pandemic, you might have a need for extra space. It's nice just to have some extra space for things that come up that are unanticipated. So a lot of different scenarios on how the Randall Road building could be used long-term. So that's my rundown on where we're at. So I think it's been good discussion with all the key department heads and stakeholders to get feedback. I think we have a sound recommendation on our approach to move forward in terms of a long-term plan, but recognizing that it can't all be accomplished overnight. I think that the scenario planning here and the phased implementation gives you a lot of different options on how to address short-term needs and needs as they continue to grow throughout the county while being respectful of available funds that the county has to do capital projects. So one last thing I'll touch on, and then happy to answer any questions. In terms of a timeline, what we'd like to do is go from here. I mean, I know I'm kind of sharing this with you rapid fire today, but that's why we gave you the handout, give people a chance to sort of digest that a little bit. And as I said, I'll be happy to answer questions. We'd like to come back in February to get a recommendation for this phased implementation plan and the different options for master plan, get a recommendation for that, then take it to committee of the whole in February to have a little bit more discussion with a broader group of the board, and then ultimately take it to county board in March for adoption. So that's our target for path forward to bring this effort to conclusion.
Sounds like a lot of discussion ahead. Is it questions for Jason? Mr. Tepe?
Thank you. Jason, very early on in your presentation, you talked about the need for an additional courtroom at the Juvenile Justice Center. We just put in a second courtroom at the Juvenile Justice Center. How can there be such an immediate need?
Yeah, I guess, so the second courtroom was moving a court operation from 3rd Street over there. So it wasn't really an added court. It's just relocating it from one building to the other. I guess from what we understood talking with the judiciary is there's just been an unfortunate increase in abuse and neglect court calls. I think the caseload that's currently being handled, I forget the name of the judge who handles that court call, but there's Judge Parga, I think. Yeah. There's a very heavy court call there. And the worry is that it's not going to be sustainable. So providing an additional courtroom just provides a little bit of relief for that court operation.
It's just a little bit disturbing to have situation where we just built out a courtroom and now to be asked to build out another one is lack of foresight in what planning is needed.
And that's why we're doing this plan, so we can get some
I can
foresight.
ID here myself.
Then well, you want to comment on that first and then?
Just a brief comment. When we sat down with our judicial partners recently and the former Chief Judge Hall, I remember him saying that current courtroom at the JJC that does abuse and neglect is run so incredibly efficiently that if they lost that judge, they would absolutely need 2 courtrooms tomorrow. Because they couldn't imagine someone running it as efficiently running someone as efficiently as she did.
Yeah.
Thank you. Then Ms. Juby, you have a comment, question?
I just have a clarification question. So you talk about a new OEM building, but when we got that, which you may not be aware, we got a packet last night about ARPA, and it had a space carved out in the public health building for OEM. So I'm just a little confused why it's a separate building now.
I'm not sure. I think you're probably talking about the E&Y risk assessment. So we reviewed that also. We received the final document yesterday, and our actual application and written justification does not include. There were 2 things that Roger and I talked about this morning that we need to talk to E&Y about, and one of them is that we are not actually in our application talking about a new space for OEM, but I think they interpreted because we talked about a hub for pandemic preparedness and communication hub during emergency situations that we would use that, but it wasn't to actually house
So
OEM permanently in the health department building. So our current plan does not include housing OEM in that building.
Okay, so as a follow-up, would that not save us if we just did it from the beginning and put them in the health department? Would it not, one, remove something off of our midterm, and two, allow us to coincide with some other monies?
Yeah, it's actually a really good idea, and it is something we discussed about looking for some FEMA funding or other federal funding to see if we could add some space for OEM. It's a great idea, especially on that campus.
Seems
and
like a
that
natural
location.
fit.
And there's some efficiencies with
And Mr.
garage
Fonstock?
space.
hey, see you.
This is Roger. One of the things that we were talking about is some of the next directions, and you're going to hear about this at committee of the whole, is in order to get to this point, we've used a lot of internal staff, EY and help. We have not hired an architect or a firm to help us with a site plan, a concept, or architect plan. So if the next step is to engage and hire someone to do that, that could be a part of looking at the program that goes into the building and saying, well, we know we have, this kind of encapsulated project that is a certain size. If we have a discussion with OEM, how big of a project is that? What would that look like? Can we get some, budgetary ideas so that we could present that to the board and potentially add it to the project? I think the timeline that we've had with Ernst & Young and ARPA so far goes back to September, October timeframe. So, we've been working through the application and all the questions for health with the health department and everyone. So OEM would be another series of trying to, if we do it with trying to do it with ARPA, or if it's other funding, that would be a topic of discussion too. I don't know what federal funds are available just for emergency management, but that was one of our topics of discussion, is if there's, available funding, that would be great. Outside of that, what we're proposing with ARPA, I think is a pretty substantial ask. It's a pretty substantial request. So I don't know how much more money would be available for a project like this, but that's a policy
I think
decision.
that's, yeah. What we're seeing is, I think by identifying our master plan, we see all of those
Yeah.
and putting it all in it as presented today. You see all of the pieces that can move around. And the best thing forward is to keep in mind that each of these is together but independent and can
Yeah.
move whatever is appropriate, but we could see which direction we're going to with this master plan. So I don't know if that answers your question. You get your questions answered.
Think about
It kind of
Detail.
We consider that.
answered the question, but I guess I would like it considered
Okay.
then in the next level that we have. I'd like it considered,
Sure.
moved and discussed like that. So
So when we,
A lot of discussion we're going to have. This was thank you for your report. It's a huge report.
so this is Roger again, when we present the proposal for basically architects' professional services, we would include basically like an alternate or a response for doing additional design work like that. And then we'd have to kind of determine how far do we want to go with that, because once you get into drawing the actual building past the concept, it starts to get, real money quickly. So you don't want to design something you don't have intentions to build.
Okay, Heidi?
I'd just like to mention that it's a little premature because we're going to be talking about this at the COW, but in the proposed new public health facility, there is 4,300 square feet approximately of training space that could be used for pandemic preparedness and emergency response. And that is something that is being considered. If we move forward, it would be included, and that could be used for OEM training, which is a space that they've said they
And
need. And
that same space is actually, I believe they still define the health department as the backup location for OEM.
yeah,
So right now in their planning purposes, that is the backup site for operations for OEM.
I'm not sure what that meant, but
Well,
Okay, no, don't worry about it.
when we build
We're
the
gonna have a lot of
building,
discussion.
it'll still be the backup
can
site.
do it. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, any other questions? Without, we could spend like 2 hours, 2 days discussing this, and will, I'm sure, in the future.
Yeah, so
Let's-
just to,
Wrap it up.
just to recap is that we will be bringing this back to admin committee with a draft plan book and the recommendation in February. And if anybody has any serious concerns or questions or suggestions, feel free to reach out to us before then.
Great. Here, lot to digest. Ms. Gums.
Thank you. I just wanted to acknowledge that, the satellite conversation, the outside of the box conversations have occurred today. And I know I've been very critical and I appreciate that. Because it's a big conversation and a big thing. So I do appreciate that. You had addressed, our court services and our satellite spots are there because of the populace. And it's not just the court services that are in the populous area, it's also health department things. So I just wanted to say I appreciate that because I was looking for that. So
I think we're looking for something very comprehensive here. Great, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Okay, well, thank you, Jason.
Thank you.
We'll be talking, I'm sure. Okay. Then we'll be moving on to Executive Director's Report, Mr. Fonstock.
So we have some gentlemen here from the Kluber Engineering that's going to talk in a little bit about the heating and air conditioning and water systems at the current adult correction facility and the sheriff's office. So my only comment for this morning for the Executive Director's Report is that that's a very important project to us. It's been something that we've been working on for some time, and you're going to have a minute to look at the proposal that's before us for doing the engineering and design services for replacing and putting, the system into operation and balancing and other things. But there's also the water systems, which we've been working with environmental and water resources on particular water quality issues in the jail, which is, it's a congregate setting. It's 24 hours a day, people living there. And it's something that we need to address, but it's important. There's two proposals today, one for HVAC and one for water that you're going to see Mr. Kluber present in a little bit. The other thing that I just wanted to say, and it's good to publicly recognize, is we had a lot of snow yesterday. It was a pretty rough ice and heavy snow. And Henry Thompson, the building management team, I think this morning, everything looks great. They did a fabulous job. I just wanted to thank them publicly. So
Did we get that new snow plow? Did we?
it was out there this morning,
All
actually
right.
touching up some things. So,
Voted on it last week? It snowed. Okay.
Yeah. but that's all I have. And then we have the resolutions, and then there is a brief presentation with the resolution for the HVAC and water system.
Okay. Me?
Yes, for the HVAC and water system.
And so that
yes.
would be Mr. Kluber then?
Yes, we
that
can
time?
do the
Do the
motion
four-
in second, and then he can talk about the
Okay,
work
So-
that's going to be done.
just in a moment then. So we'll deal with the resolutions up to that point and then.
Yes.
Okay, so item A, resolution, I'd entertain a motion authorize, or for a resolution to authorize a contract for Kane County air compressor equipment and services, bid 2400 ATS, moved by Berman, second by Ford. And that would be Mr. Thompson.
Yes, good morning, Henry Thompson, Building Management. Item A is authorizing building management to enter an agreement with Diversified Mechanical for compressor services. It is a budget amount of 100,000, and we recommend your approval.
Any
And I'm
questions for Mr.
Happy to
Thompson?
answer any questions.
Roll call, please.
Berman, Davis,
Davis, yes.
Ford, Gums,
yes.
Young,
And yes.
Juby,
VI,
Caius.
Guys, yes. Item B, I'd entertain a motion and a second for authorizing a contract for Kane County fencing repair, replacement, and installation bid number 24003 TS, moved by Ford, second by Berman.
Yes, item B here is authorizing building management to enter an agreement with MBE Fence and Northern Contracting for fencing repair and installation throughout the county. We're asking for 100,000. It is budgeted. and we're recommending your approval and happy to answer any questions if you have.
That's up to 100,000. Yeah. Okay, any questions for Mr. Thompson? Roll call, please.
Berman,
Yes.
Davis,
Davis, yes.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Gums,
Yes.
Young,
Young, yes.
Juby,
VI.
Caius.
Caius, yes.
So they're taking a vote
Item C, I'd entertain a motion and second to authorize an agreement with White and Company for the Public Defender Office renovation, moved by Berman, second by Juby.
Yes, item C here is authorizing an agreement with White and Company for the design for the public defender space at the JC in the amount of 50,000. It is budgeted and we recommend your approval.
Any questions? Roll call, please.
Berman,
Yes.
Davis,
Davis, yes.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Gums,
Gums, yes.
Young,
Young, yes.
Juby,
Aye.
Caius.
Caius, yes. Item D, resolution, I'd entertain a motion and a second authorizing a contract for window washing services, bid 24006 TS, moved by
Gums will move.
Gums, second by Juby.
Yes, item D is authorizing building management to enter in a contract with all window cleaning for the window cleaning throughout the county for all the buildings. The bid came back at 28,950. It is budgeted and we're recommending your approval.
Any questions? Roll call, please.
Berman,
Yes.
Davis,
Davis, yes.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Gums, yes.
Young,
Young, yes.
Juby,
VI.
Caius.
Caius, yes. Item E, a resolution, may I have a motion and a second for authorizing a contract for engineering and design for HVAC systems at the Adult Justice Center. A solicitation RFQ 23-058, moved by Berman, second by
Davis.
Juby.
Or
Next time,
Juby.
Davis.
There you go. Mhm.
Then we will have, you want to start with this one or we start with Mr.
Oh, I
Kluber?
think, yeah, yes, this is Roger again. I think we have Mr. Kluber from Kluber Engineering, and Heidi's also working on the project as a project manager to facilitate, but we do have Mr. Kluber here to walk through what they're proposing in this design work. And this is really the part that we need in order to get the bid solicitation out to replace all of the existing equipment. And then there are things that they're going to be addressing that have been problematic over the years that were brought out by the sheriff's office and people that maintain the building, and things that they would look to address in the process of design and engineering phase. Some of these things we're going to have to discuss further as they get into this to see if it's feasible to do some of the things that are being asked. And that's why we felt it was really important to get an engineering company and to look at these, because some of these things are far more complex than just replacing a unit. So that's just my preface to this. So
Just as historical perspective, the initial was that all of the units on the top of the center are about the same age and all are
yes,
in need of repair or replacement.
they were all installed late 2007.
So
So they're approaching
that
18 years.
originally was to make sure that they were all operating, because that is a 24/7 facility. And that while we're doing that, we will try and address some of the questions,
Yep.
perennial problems that they have with things. Okay,
Yes, sir.
then Mr. Kluber, thank you. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. So Mike Kluber, Kluber Architects and Engineers, we're based in Aurora, Illinois. We have been working with the county since Jan Carlson's day, if you remember him. So we've been working with the staff, and they are pretty eager to get moving on this project. They presented us with a list that's comprehensive, and we'll take you through it from a high level. We can get into details later. Feel free to ask questions along the way. That does not bother me at all. So we can start with page 1, which is just the exhibit A. This is for the HVAC improvements, and you can see that there's a grid to keep it organized as far as what each individual project that's inside of this one, even though it's one contract, there's actually multiple projects that we're addressing. So when we actually went through our formal presentation and walkthrough with the staff, They presented us with a long list of items of things that they know are issues to address. We were able to take that information, walk with our design team, listen to what the objectives are of the project, and broke it into manageable pieces that you see right here as far as 7 on this. You can see the list here. The very first one we'll take, and if you look at the project is the jail tower HVAC project. It's nominally 236,000 square feet. From a design basis, you'll see that we're showing a number here, but that's just to establish a design fee that's fair and reasonable. It is not intended to be what your construction cost is at this point in time. We're not quite ready to discuss what the design alternatives are. So, but it is a basis for our design fee going forward, and that is necessary in this procurement cycle to handle it this way. We have money set aside. You can see a budget for testing and balancing. That is something that along the way, if we feel we're going to keep some of these systems here, we want to be able to do a testing and balancing to make sure it's actually operating correctly. So that's the methodology of this grid and table that you're showing. So moving forward then on page 2, we can talk about individual projects. So here's the list of items that we're looking at: the jail tower and HVAC systems. We are going to be testing and balancing once we have an understanding of what the air distribution system is doing. Return air ductwork is tied to the service corridor. So you'll see it here and again in a later project, but I want to remind you that this return air ductwork is also tied to 2 other parts of the proposal. There are some performance issues that we want to address on the zones. We're also going to consider destratification fans and look at additional RTUs in certain, there's a rooftop unit in certain areas of the service corridors behind the cells. Those were all tied to one specific design or construction variants that we're going to look at. So there's also some insulation that's degraded on the roof. You can see it on the photograph on page 3. You see the ductwork, it extends out from the main, that's the rooftop unit we're talking about. You can see that even though it's down 2007, it is operating 24/7. So it is getting 2 or 3 times the amount of work of a normal commercial building, so that it is appropriate for that to have this kind of wear. Also within this jail, the Liebert units, we have multiple floors of IT closets that are tied to one central system that we're looking to modify to make it more useful. It just needs some changes to it. So we have not designed that yet. That is the first project. Any questions about the first project? Would it be better to take it project by project, sir?
Speedy and efficient
Speedy and efficient. I'll move along.
and
Very good.
thorough, all at the same time. Yeah. How about
Well, that's what I said. It's kind of technical, and
that? Got 3 more minutes.
I do apologize.
No,
for
go ahead. Take your time.
that.
This is a big project.
Well, we'll spend as much time as we need. So the pipe chase in the there's an exterior wall that there's some moisture that's accumulating through the exterior wall in a pipe chase or the surface corridor. We'll be addressing that and coming up with design solutions for that. The sheriff's office HVAC, there are some zone definition controls that we're going to be looking at. There's some change of use in some of the spaces, especially in the evidence handling, that will be looking to create better filtration and indoor air quality. And also there is an IDF room that requires just additional cooling. It's typical in these buildings where technology just keeps increasing. The amount of power and cooling requirements just increase over time. So that is just something where this room just needs to be revamped. There's a new lab that we are in the process for forensics that we're going to be able to under this project address those issues, since it is one project, makes more sense here. And there's some other in the temperature control system and backup power. Those are elements that are within the sheriff's office. I'm moving fast. Apologize for talking quickly. Shooting range HVAC renovations, there are some deficiencies there that we're going to be addressing. Kitchen and laundry area, we have some pressurization issues that we're going to be looking at. There's also some accelerated depreciation and rust of some of the components that we'll be looking at. And then we want to rebalance the system here as well just to make for the pressurization of that in the area. Medical intake, that is another area we have pressurization issues and just, and some of the return air needs to be looked at. And the Sally Port HVAC exhaust system, we need to, there's a control sequence here that doesn't seem to be operating properly, but our engineers will take a look at it. So that's the scope of services, and then I'll leave it at that.
Quite a list. Any questions? Dig out of that. Yes, Mr. Tepe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On what I'll call
Into the microphone, please, sir.
on what I'll call the page immediately after the cover page, there's a column there for design fee.
Yes, sir.
And then way back on the end of it, there's a compensation of design fee. Is that the same thing?
They are, and if you were to take those two pages and put them side by side, you'll see that we offer our services in 3 steps. They collect the information, perform our analysis to see what it is that we need to be doing and make a recommendation on design moving forward. And so if you look at the fee, you'll see that there's a schematic design, a design development and construction document phase. And that serves on the second page, not the first page, that shows you what the services per phase are. That'd be page 2. And we could have numbered these pages for you as well.
Okay. But the point I want to make is how much of this is within the current budget?
Mr. Fonstock.
The design and the engineering work that we're looking at today is something that's in the capital budget for the 5-year plan. We have the funds for this, and we're going to recommend the resolution for approval. As you get into the design work and you look at this, you're going to have options of whether or not we want to proceed with, say, ductwork in the outer shell of the building, redesigning it, or how bad is it? How good is it? What do we need to do? So these were kind of the pre-engineering estimates of costs. The primary concern we have is for the jail, getting the adult correction facility, air conditioning, all in good running working condition, which is going to require replacing a lot of the equipment. The second part is the sheriff's office itself. So you'll see those in there, the sheriff's office, the jail, and then you have the Sally Port, which is more of a exhaust and ventilation issue, probably a minor issue compared to the rest of it. The gun range was built a few years after the jail. The equipment's in a little bit better condition, but it has a lot of high filtration issues for air quality. So we're trying to make sure that that's at least safe and operational for them. There's also, like some of the other quality issues of the air and circulation that they're looking at. So all of these things collectively are bigger and greater than just the initial look at the jail. But in working with the sheriff's office, they wanted us to have the engineer look at all of these.
Okay, I understand, and I certainly don't want to in any way, shape, or form argue against any of the technical or the needed aspects of it. But we just went through a very, very tough financial year associated with budgeting. So to say this is in the 5-year plan is one thing.
It is.
What is in the plan for this year?
The architect engineering design phase is in the budget. And then we were working with finance. We had it in the 5-year capital plan for the sheriff's jail and office.
But in total, this is about a $12 million
I think you're right. 11 or 12.
plan that I'm seeing put before us. And I don't think that's in the budget.
I don't think all of the construction that would, if you elected to do all of the construction, we would have to edit the 5-year capital plan going into next year's capital plan or before you approve of the construction.
Okay. And the point I want to make is not anything in relationship to talking
Sure.
about the work being done or the necessity of it or anything else. But it's time that we start living to our budget, not approving every new project that came up. And unless there can be some justification associated with major changes associated with this, I'm going to continue to ask questions and be critical, because we can't go through a year where we finance this county based upon reserves, and then we start taking money out of reserves because of planning and other kinds of things without a major look at where this financing is coming from. So
Thank you, sir.
that's my point.
If I can insert a little bit, I think this is a measured step to find out what is needed. And so we have a full picture of what the entire thing would be, or the entire project, but all of it, all the information will then be available, so we can say, okay, this needs to be done now, but we can put this other stuff off. This is not a blanket, and correct me if I'm wrong, this is not a blanket statement of, hey, we're gonna
Yeah.
do all of this stuff.
Oh.
This is where we get a good picture, overall picture of what the condition is. That's what the phase one type, if you were in transportation, the phase one engineering is to look at a very a broad scale of what what we think needs to be done, and then we go from there.
And by the way, I am in complete agreement with that,
Yeah.
okay? And I think we all are.
Okay,
But the key thing is, we need to be more
well,
attuned to the financial aspects of things, particularly with this current budget year and going forward.
we'll take
And
that to
I don't want to
Finance
just see us approving a project just because we think it's needed.
Committee. Good point.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr.
Ford.
Ford?
Yeah, thank you. I really agree with Tepe on the budget part, except for, I think we already took in our reserves and set that money aside. So there are, I believe, other dollars there. But we need this part so we can plan our budget more direct of what needed in the next future, what's needed now and what's needed over the next 5 to 10 years. So that's what this plays a part of. So this is a project that's well overdue and as well needed, so we can plan a better budget in the near future, starting now.
Agreed. I think what this does hopefully is eliminate surprises down the way.
Exactly.
We're doing maintenance and things like that. Mr. Fonstock?
Yeah, Roger, once again, just to be clear, to reiterate, this is part of the initiation and planning. There would be bid documents and plan sets that would go out to bid, and those would all come back to the board. You're not approving of the actual execution or construction. This is the engineering, design, and planning. And earlier I was trying to reach for a term that we've used in talking about this, and that's the custodial care of people. So when this facility is not operating correctly in the middle of the night, it's not like our other buildings. These people can't go home. They're in custodial care. They're in lockup, and when the heat or the air conditioning is not working, it creates a lot of other problems that are emergency related, and that's what we're trying to get away from.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Mr. Young?
Yes. David Young, I question going back to what Mr. Tepe had brought up on the design fee. That's just for you to do the engineering work, right? I mean, that doesn't include the cost of the material. That's your
No.
labor to literally put together a bill of materials, drawings.
The plan sets, yeah.
What is your hourly rate? I'm just curious.
Those are all in the back.
They're in the,
They're in there.
Where? Oh, I'm sorry.
I think maybe the second from the last page. There's the third last page.
Okay, so I guess if it's $225, I guess do that math, divided by 500,000.
That's the principle though. Yeah, that's Mike.
Okay, well, I mean,
Yeah.
so there's a lot of numbers here. How many hours is it gonna take for you $500,000
That's a lot
at
of money.
$100 an hour, let's say? I mean, that's a
There-
lot of,
I
that's a
think-
lot of time to put toward,
It is.
it just seems like it's a lot of time. What is that?
So I-
5,000 hours? I mean,
So when we
That's a
worked
lot.
out the fee, there's three different ways to look at it. Number one is looking at the construction value of the work is what's called fair and reasonable. So As far as the design solution per phase, this will take us, I want you to realize this will take us through November. It is a 8-month process. It's not one individual. There's a whole staff of people that have to be involved. There's architect, structural, mechanical, engineers, electrical engineers, testing and balancing folks. We have technology people for the BAS system. We have project managers, me, that overhead. So if you look at it, and I looked at it 4 different ways, and I took this through the administrative staff as well. To go through what is the basis, not only on what's fair on a percent of construction costs, what is the construction value? That's what that exercise is for, to show what is the fair value of the work. So right now, we're between 6 to 7 to 8%, depending on the complexity of which project it is. And that is the normal, usual way that I went through different agencies. I looked at from all of our other county work. This is just how you calculate at this stage of the game what the work effort is. So if you look at it per phase, and I did do per project, I think at some point in time, somewhere through design development, there will be obviously the HVAC department will have 3 engineers for 30% of their time for about 8 weeks. So for that phase, that's the highest pinch for us.
Three engineers for 8 weeks?
Just for that one discipline. So that's the highest pinch point in our office to flow the work, to make sure that we're not only doing this work, but doing all the other work that we need to get done as well. So, but these, this industry is pretty mature. So you can go to any of your prior purchases or my 30 years of purchases to see what is fair and reasonable. So we look at it, it's pretty cut and dry. So
it's 5,000, let's say
Yeah.
5,000 hours roughly to do the design and development.
no,
So
that's not,
I think
That's
I
not how
would
we
say,
do it.
this is Roger again, I would look at it more in line with like a fixed fee proposal for delivering the plan set and engineering. And that's something we've discussed is, you can do hourly rates and apply hours to the work, but then, we're counting hours and tracking work by the hour. And then our goal is to get a product from Kluber to do the bid set. So we've gone back and forth whether or not you can actually assess the hours involved to get approval from a board, or can you do this based on the gross of what the project is and industry standard rates?
okay,
That's kind of the discussions that Heidi and Henry and I've had with Mr. Kluber. So
okay. I would just
Yeah.
I'm curious because you have an hourly rate and then all of a sudden it's $500,000 and you're saying it's 3 engineers for 8 weeks. So that's 24.
well, that's just for one phase. That's the
That's-
design development phase.
Right.
That
So
is
it's
just
24
one.
weeks. And so,
That would be, yeah, but that's just one discipline.
right. So let's say it's
could-
24 weeks times 40 hours in a week. I mean, it just seems like a lot of money per hour, for that $500,000 seems like a really lot to me. I mean, because
But it is on a
Yeah.
commissioner
per hour
salary.
basis, on a per hour basis too, right? So, I mean,
Yeah.
that just seems really high.
Well,
I'm not sure. I think maybe as the chair, I'm going to try and rein this in. If you'd like to have more information, unless this would interfere with the actually overall, I think it's it's an industry standard we're going with right here. So let's see if the committee will accept it as an industry standard, and certainly we'll make sure that you get more education and information that we're going to be running this through other committees as well. But on that standard, I know that we're going time-wise, so I think we can move on if that's okay.
I was going to say, we still have the water system to talk about too, just to make sure we cover that as
Yeah,
well.
okay. So, and then Gums?
Yes, I just wanted to follow up on, I apologize, Mr. Chair, but I think I want to round this out a little bit because Mr. Tepe brings up a good point, brings it back to November when we were deciding whether or not to add revenue to our budget. So now we're faced with several projects, and I'm looking at details here of exhaust problems and so needs and wants, right? That's a broad picture for us right now at this stage of what we're doing. And when I'm looking at the exhaust system and, brought up evidence. Evidence security is incredibly important, not only immediately, but for years in the future. Those are things that not everybody understands, and those aren't wants, those are have to haves. So that's where we are right now. And I just want to drill down on that point is we made a decision in November. We have the reserves that we have to utilize, and now we have to make some hard choices on what we need and what we want. And that's also goes to Mr. Young's point about the expenses, and we have to consider all those things. So I just want to drill down on that point because I think we should reflect on that often when we're going forward to November's.
Thank you. Any other questions? Then is this part, do you have something else as part of this?
I think it would be good just to explain the second part, which is a proposal that we have for addressing the water quality and water systems. This is dealing with the holding tanks and water heaters.
B?
Yeah, there's some issues that have been ongoing with the quality of water in the jail. And they've, environmental water resources, building management have been working to treat the problem and symptoms over the last 12 months, maybe a little bit longer than that. And we need to get a better engineering plan to change the way we treat water and provide the heated water and water in the system for that building. So we had asked Kluber to also provide a proposal for looking at all of the holding tanks, water heaters, distribution system throughout the jail system. So we have Mr. Kluber here. He could probably walk through it pretty quickly. It's not anywhere near as large of a system as the heating and air conditioning. So
what is there now is a storage system, and they're spending a lot of, there's a lot of water usage that's being dumped just to keep the system disinfected. So what we're looking to do is to convert to a instantaneous system that then also has a higher water temperature, operating temperature, so that we can disinfect through thermal versus chemical solution. And the system would require going into the distribution system to raise the water temperature throughout the main risers and install thermostatic mixing valves and replace these valves to maintain that water temperature throughout the system. So it'll be more reliable on the disinfecting and also reduce the amount of water consumption and the amount of chlorine, and eliminate the need for chlorine.
And this is a safety issue. Primarily, the initiation of this was a safety issue.
yes, there's water quality issues in the jail that, like I mentioned, environmental and water resources have been working on it with a engineering company that does the water testing, Phygenics, and we've been trying to work with them to treat and deal with like the symptomatic types of things. And it's just gotten to the point where we need to do something more substantial to treat the issue at hand. So
Okay.
I'd be happy to discuss what the issues are if somebody wants to talk about it offline. That'd be fine.
Is that part of this resolution then?
That is, there's two parts. There's an approval of the agreement with Kluber for Exhibit A and B. Exhibit A is the HVAC, and we're recommending the approval of that at $1,066,400. It's a budgeted expense in the capital project. And then we're also recommending for the water system design engineering $64,746, and that's also a part of the capital plan.
Okay. Any other questions?
Can I make one rebuttal though?
Sure, by all means.
Well,
For clarity.
we've been this for since 1988, and we work with every county in the area and every municipal government. We present these proposals and these pricings just around Northern Illinois. So I don't want you to feel as if we're expensive. We are actually competitive in our industry. So I saw your calculator out and I just saw it, and I just don't know how to say that any clearer than that, but it is, it's been vetted. We went through, we gave the reasonable basis as to why it's worth what it is. And I'm a resident of King County, and these are my tax dollars as well. So I just want to let you know that I don't want you to have the opinion that Kluber is somehow more expensive than any other firm that you can have walk through here. So, and your people have vetted that as well. Thank you.
Okay. Then I will call for the question.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
Davis,
Davis, yes, with an acknowledgement to the sticker shock that Mr. Young alludes to.
Ford, Gums, Young,
No.
Juby,
Maybe I,
Caius.
Guys, yes.
Passes.
Right, on to information technology. May I have a motion and a second for a resolution authorizing payment to Unsolved for Code Red and iPause for Kane County Office of Emergency Management out of the Public Safety Sales Tax Fund. Moved by Ford, second by Davis.
Juby,
Davis, sure.
sorry,
I know Mark's been waiting there.
tried.
There you go. Yeah. My turn.
The microphone on. All right, thanks, Mark. Okay, and then that would be Charles Lasky, please.
Hi, this is Charles Lasky with the IT department. This is software that's used by OEM for communicating with the public during emergencies or disasters. They've been using it for many years. Inflation has caused the price to finally get over the $30,000 threshold on this. So that's why this is probably the first resolution you've seen for this, but it's something that's been in use for quite some time. We would recommend approval as it is a system that is budgeted and is something that OEM relies on.
Okay, any questions for Charles? Roll call, please.
Berman, Davis,
Davis, yes.
Ford, Gums,
Gums, yes.
Young,
Young, yes.
Juby,
Aye.
Caius.
Guys, yes.
Passes.
Motion passes on to 11 Mill Creek. We have a motion and a second authorizing contract extension for Mill Creek SSA Parkway Tree Services. Moved by
Davis moves.
Davis, second by
Ford.
Ford. Mr. Fonstock?
Okay, this is just another extension of tree service contract. It's a 1-year extension. This was done by bid in 2020. The bid number's in there. It's with Henry Tree Company of Batavia. Again, it's $20,456.80, which is below the bid threshold, but we've been doing a multi-year agreement with them, so we're asking approval. It's budgeted from Mill Creek SSA funds.
Any questions? Roll call, please.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
Davis,
Davis, yes.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Gums, yes.
Young, Juby,
Maybe I,
Caius.
Yes.
Passes.
Item B, may I have a motion and a second for a resolution to authorize a contract extension for Mill Creek SSA Parkway Tree Installation Services. Moved by
Juby,
Juby, second by
Berman.
Furman.
More trees. So this
More
is
trees, yeah.
Yeah, another agreement where we're doing a 1-year extension with Langton Group. It's $60,000. We're seeking approval of this using Mill Creek SSA funds. It's a budgeted expense and recommending approval.
Any questions? Roll call, please.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
Davis,
Davis, yes.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Gums,
Gums, yes.
Young,
Yes.
Juby,
maybe I,
Caius.
Guys, yes. On to vehicles. May I have a motion and a second for a resolution approving purchase of one 2025 tandem axle truck cab and chassis for the Kane County Division of Transportation. Moved by
Davis still move.
Davis.
Gums,
Second.
second.
Gums, second. Mr.
Yes.
Fonsta, or let's see.
Or we have
Oh,
KDOT
over
here.
Yeah,
This is Michael Way from KDOT.
Michael.
We're asking for approval of one 25 Kenworth truck chassis to replace a snowplow that we took out of service. This unit that it's replacing is a unit 45. It's the old 2003 Oshkosh. We're not going to be selling that vehicle. We're actually going to be keeping it. We modified it this year, put a 14-foot fencing wing on it. So for larger snow events, we would use it as like a grader, really push that snow off the road. Normal type of replacement is every 13 to 15 years. So due to difficulties in ordering trucks, we had to secure this through Sourcewell contract. We're asking, it is budgeted in FY24 budget, so asking for approval.
All right, any questions for Mike? Roll call, please.
Berman, Davis,
Davis, yes.
Ford,
Gums, yes.
Young,
And yes.
Juby,
Aye.
Caius.
Guys, yes. Item B, may I have a motion and a second for a resolution ratifying an emergency purchase affidavit to purchase two 2024 Ford E-Transit 350 cargo vans for the Building Management Department. Moved by,
Ford.
second by
Berman.
Urban. Then I don't know, is this Henry?
Yes, Henry Thompson, Building Management again. Item B is ratifying the emergency purchase for the two transit vans Building Management acquired. We did go out to bid for these two vehicles, but the responses came back as builds. And these two vehicles were on the lot. But the other factor that played into us doing the EPA versus going with the bid was that the vehicles that came back to bid were $5,000 more each. So we took the less expensive route and went with the EPA to save the $10,000 for the two vehicles.
Okay.
So,
Any questions for Henry?
and also the two vehicles that were purchased are 100% electric vehicles.
Oh, electric vehicles. Like I
Uh,
said, Ford E-Transit, huh?
Yes.
All right. Need more charging stations then. Goes. All right. Any questions for Henry? Hearing none. Roll call, please.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
Davis,
Davis, yes.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Gums,
Gums, yes.
Young,
Young, yes.
Juby,
Juby, aye.
Caius.
Caius, yes.
Passes.
All right. Well, that's the resolutions. Is there any new business, Mr. Fonstock? Any old business? Maybe a motion and a second to place the reports on file?
Ford, make
Fo-
the
Ford, move.
unanimous.
Oh, there's a unanimous consent from Ford. Is there any objection? Then we're good.
No, I was asleep.
There's no need for executive session. Is there any public comment on non-agenda items? Hearing none, seeing none. We have a motion and a second to adjourn.
Gums will move.
Moves.
Davis, second.
Davis, second.
I'm gonna start out.
All in favor?
Aye.